What's up guys, Anfield here. Welcome back to a new video. So today's video is going to be the answer portion of the Q&A. I already asked you for questions on the previous video. That's where I sourced all the questions from. If you didn't get your question featured in this video, it's probably because one or two reasons. Either your answer was really easy to figure out within like 30 seconds, or because someone else already asked your question. So yeah, pretty much it. Let's get into the video. So SESD95 or SESD95, I don't know, has a three-part question, which is fine because I think some of this stuff you guys would be interested to know. So first he says, despite what being an annoying and frustrating game mostly of the times, I think he means most of the time, what makes the game still interesting to play? And I guess that's a few things, but what's kind of a unique game, and it's fun to have like a shooter game that you can roll around in a tank. You know, you have more mechanics in the game that you don't get with your typical shooter. You get, you know, sort of the angling of the armor, the penetration values, as well as like the spotting and all the other strategy that goes into the game that you don't really get with other shooter games. They're more like reflex FPS games. This is more strategy, so I kind of like that as well. And also, it's interesting to play still because I have, you know, such an awesome community around streaming YouTube. There's been people that have been watching me for years, so you know, they keep it fun as well. So I guess those are the sort of the two factors. So the second part, he asked me what made me want to create a YouTube channel as a content creator, and I guess that sort of stems from the last bit of what I just said, is the community. I really enjoy the community, but the initial reason I actually started the YouTube channel as well as streaming was to help people learn the game. So I guess that was sort of my initial motivation to start the channel. So his final question is, how many battles did it take for me to play at the level I am today? And that's a really difficult question to answer because I don't actually know the answer. What I can say is that around 2,000 battles is when I got my first tier 10, the E100. I went straight for it. It was kind of a recent addition, and it was kind of a niche tank. It required a lot of angling, macroing, and things like that to actually make the tank work, and because the AP pen was low, you had to really work at it in order to pen things, because you couldn't fire gold because that was still for gold at the time. You couldn't buy it for credits like you can now, although back then, the weak points existed on tanks. So. But regardless, it motivated me to get better at the game. I really enjoyed playing my E100, and then I joined the clan Relic with my good friend Zakum at the time, which Relic was a pretty good clan, and we sort of both were challenging each other to get better, I guess, at the game. That was the first time that sort of any kind of metric had ever been introduced, the original efficiency, and everyone was like, oh, what's my efficiency level? Which we laugh at now, but at the time, obviously, we didn't have anything better. And while I was in Relic, I met a player called Heavy20 who was like just outstanding. I later played alongside him on a team, and yeah, he was one of the best players I've ever played with or have subsequently played with. So he really motivated me to get better as well. So, you know, I guess it's anywhere from after 2,000 battles to get to the point where I am now. I don't know, at a rough guess, I would say about 10,000 battles, maybe. Back then when there wasn't really as much educational content as there is now, you can watch streams and YouTube and, you know, watch all the best players. You couldn't do that back then. So there wasn't really anyone to watch, so yeah. I guess it's a really difficult question to answer, that one. Majoris asks, if you could choose one superpower, what would it be? I guess maybe teleportation would be the most fun. There's lots of really cool superpowers you could come up with, but I think teleportation would be the most practical and useful in everyday life. Getting places really quickly and ultimately cheaply, I guess, would be really fun, I think, and really cool. You could just go out a day out to any place in the globe that you want instantly, and that would be kind of fun. So yeah, teleportation. Derek asks, how do I get a smooth and silky voice like yours? Well, I don't know what to tell you because I actually hate how my voice sounds over the interwebs, but I feel like that's something that a lot of people have, so I don't know. I'm sure your voice sounds fine, Derek. So I guess I could have seen this one coming, but after all those years, I still don't understand why you were so sarcastic when it comes to something about Quickie Baby. Leona already replied to this with saying, what are memes? And that's, yeah, basically the perfect response. That's all it is. It's just a bit of banter. I like to have a laugh. I like to make fun of people, myself, people I like, people I'm mad about. You know, it just is how it is. You know how you have like friends as well? You call them insults. Doesn't mean you hate them, you know? I don't know why people get so offended, especially on other people's behalfs over things that aren't even malicious. Now, there is legitimately quite a lot of hate towards Quickie Baby, but personally, I don't harbor any hate towards the guy. I do think he's an amusing fellow. He is a very, very big YouTuber and streamer, so naturally he gets a lot of feedback one way or the other towards him. And he's a big boy, he can handle it, I think. Although the bit with Lemming Rush was interesting, break of character, but regardless, normally, you know, nothing. And I'm almost 99.999% positive he's never heard anything I've ever said, doesn't know who I am. I mean, I've never met the guy. I've met Jingles. He's a really, really nice dude, by the way. But never met Quickie, so, you know, At the end of the day, anything I say towards him or any other streamer is generally just a bit of banter. Okay, don't need to get so offended. So yeah. E50M or Leopard 1? Well, that's easy. E50M. The E50M is just better armored by a long shot, obviously. Leopard has no armor. It also has a more reliable gun, which it definitely shouldn't have, but it does, so that's that. Yeah, the Leopard just really doesn't have anything going for it. It's faster, but, you know, that's about it. A lot of these maps don't allow you to properly snipe like the Leopard is supposed to be able to do. It can't snap, so it has to be stationary sniping, and just not enough of those situations around. A lot of cases you have to brawl. It's not like it can play on the hills better than the E50M either, because the E50M has added gun depression now than it had before, so that's even a moot point. Plus the E50M can ram for supplemental damage per game. So yeah, poor Leo doesn't really have much going for it. Is it worth re-rolling if you want to get into a top clan? No, it's a waste of your own time. Any top clan that's worth their salt will be able to look at your recent damage per games, your ability to possibly 3-mark it to 10. I mean, it depends on what kind of top clan you're talking about. If it's like top 20 or top 2, big difference there. So yeah, I mean, maybe some others would look at your WN8 and be like, ah, yes, it's bad. But you know, only bad clans really care about WN8 anymore. So yeah, don't reroll. I remember you doing a PC build a few months back. How's it treating you? Any components you would or wouldn't recommend? Yeah, it was actually a year ago that I built this PC, and it's been amazing. It's allowed me to make videos and stream in ways that I wasn't able to do with the old PC. It's been just really, really awesome. As for components, obviously it's a year old, so better things have come out. You know, I've got a 980 Ti, but you know, there's a 10 series graphics cards now from NVIDIA, so you could get those. I don't know about recommending components because I'm really not that great with that, so probably not the best person to ask. But what I would say is that, yeah, the PC's been amazing. Anfield, when are you going to start watching anime? I already watch anime. My favorite show is The Big Bang Theory and Cory in the House. What, in your opinion, is the key to making complex decisions quickly based on what both teams are doing in order to maximize potential? Sounds like the essay portion at the end of an exam. It's kind of a difficult question to answer, but if you're already making decisions based on what both teams are doing, then you're already on the right track anyway. But ultimately, you have to look at what is your most potential in any given situation that carries the least risk and highest reward. At the end of the day, whenever I'm in a situation, I always try to do a few things. One, I need to be where the damage is going to be. Two, I need to be where my teammates are going to be, so I'm not the only one being shot back at. And three, I also need to be on a flank where I can run and also avoid being shot from multiple different directions. Far too many people put themselves in positions where they can be shot from multiple different angles rather than try to eliminate that and have only one flank where they can put their strongest point of armor forward. Could you give a few up-to-date thoughts on the IS-7? I've unlocked it, but I'm not sure whether to buy it, as I've heard it's been power crept. Yes, it's certainly not at the top end of tier 10 heavy tanks anymore. It's more towards the bottom end, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It's still an okay tank to pub in. It's not so bad. The armor is okay. It's not quite at the level of certain other tanks that we know, but the turret, of course, is basically impenetrable, so under some rubble protection, that's really good. And the frontal armor can sometimes bounce if you're moving at full speed and people don't have time to aim properly at you, but don't expect too much from it. But the alpha on the gun is still quite nice to use. The pen isn't great, but is usable, and especially if you use APCR, obviously it'll be much better. So yeah, I mean, I would still get it. It's not going to be outstanding, but it's going to be easy to use, and it's still going to be a decent tank. Any tips on how to be more consistent? I have 2600 recent WNA, however I still have many low damage games because I sometimes find myself in a situation after a few minutes of the game where I get no damage and I can't quite figure out where to move next to farm more damage. Especially I have problems with medium tanks on maps like Windstorm, Corellia, Overlord, and Redshire. Well, this would be the longest answer to any question if I gave you specifics, but what I can say is farming damage is all about reading the team listing and your positioning. So at the end of the day, you have to load into a battle and see where the damage is going to be. And also you need to figure out where you can go safely. For example, if you've got 2 mediums on your team and the enemy has 6, don't go to the common medium flank because you'll probably get wrecked. Unless you see you have a lot of allies going that way, such as heavy tanks. If that's the case, then slow your pace down, go and support the heavies. They'll absorb the damage while you dish out the damage. But the point of mediums is also to put yourself in a position where you can relocate. So, you know, if you're on a position where there is no damage, mediums are fast enough that you should have put yourself in a position where you can evacuate from there, relocate to another flank, and start farming that one as well. Use that speed to your advantage, because otherwise, what's the point of having it? How to play a medium fast tank in a typical heavy tank flank. Sometimes I feel I'm forced to play heavy tank side as I would be alone or heavily outnumbered on the other flank. And this sort of goes off of what I was just saying with sometimes you do have to go to that heavy tank flank and play a support role. I can't tell you, because I can't just be like, this is how you play it, because all of them are different. At the end of the day, you just have to try and play that support role. Pay attention to the enemy's reloads when they fire and when they're vulnerable for you to shoot back at. Obviously, you want to avoid taking the hits as you're unlikely to have the armor, but you probably do have good DPM. I would also recommend going for as many track shots if you don't have a penetrating shot. A lot of your allies will have the alpha and the penetration to actually punish the enemy heavy tank. Sometimes you may not. And in which case you may want to just shoot out tracks. There are a number of reasons this is good. One, because shooting out tracks will get you assisted damage if the enemy does receive a lot of damage. And also two, because you may force the enemy into using a repair kit when they may get a damage module afterwards. So you just want to cripple them as much as possible. So that's kind of what I would recommend. Yeah, just pay attention to reloads, maybe go for tracks if you can sometimes. Obviously the best shots are road wheel shots, where you can go through the road wheel from the side and track and do damage. But if not, go for what you can. What's the most hated tank that I've played? I guess there are a number of candidates, but the one that comes to mind that I really didn't get along with was the tier 9 Foch. After playing the 704, it was terrible to play the tier 9 Foch. What's the most hated tank that I've played? I guess there are a number of candidates, but the one that comes to mind that I really didn't get along with was the tier 9 Foch. After playing the 704, it was terrible to play the tier 9 Foch. What's the most hated tank that I've played? I guess there are a number of candidates, but the one that comes to mind that I really didn't get along with was the tier 9 Foch. After playing the 704, it was terrible to play the tier 9 Foch. What's the most hated tank that I've played? I guess there are a number of candidates, but the one that comes to mind that I really didn't get along with was the tier 9 Foch. After playing the 704, it was terrible to play the tier 9 Foch. What's the most hated tank that I've played? I guess there are a number of candidates, but the one that comes to mind that I really didn't get along with was the tier 9 Foch. After playing the 704, it was terrible to play the tier 9 Foch. What's the most hated tank that I've played? I guess there are a number of candidates. What is your opinion on bringing OP equipment, I guess we know your opinion, from ranked battles to random battles? Now, I already sort of touched on this in my video on ranked battles, but ultimately, I guess I would have to say that while I'm all for improving your tank and making it more unique, which is why I didn't have a problem with the Rubicon stuff, other than the economics, I'm really disappointed they decided to scrap that rather than just fix the economy of it. With the improved equipment, it's hard because I would like to see them in the game. You know, because ultimately when you can make your tank perform better, the tank is less subjugated by RNG and other things. So that would be cool. But I did say that I would like bonds to be able to be achieved in random battles through missions or other events such as those, because that way at least players that don't play the ranked battles have an opportunity to earn them through bonds by playing in normal public matches. The only problem is if you do allow them in random battles, you know, what kind of tier cutoff do you put on them? Do you put a tier cutoff at all? Because if you allow people to put them on lower tier tanks, they're just gonna seal club even harder than they do right now. I mean, those people to me are pathetic anyway, but you know, whatever, they exist, so it's gonna make it even worse for newer players. The other problem is if you make a cutoff and you say, let's just say, oh, I don't know, tier 10 only, right? Tier 10s become even more powerful over the lower tiers that they're going to meet in random battles, so that's another problem. So there are a lot of obstacles to overcome to really allow these to be in random battles and for them to be balanced in a way that works, even if you do allow bonds to be earned through random battles, through missions or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of a really difficult one, and I think Wargaming are going to have to really look at this closely in order to not make too big of an error. So Jonas asks, I have been grinding my super pershing for my second mark of excellence since last Sunday. I've been hovering around 80% for 3 days. Do you have any advice on how I can break through the 80% mark and get my mark? Well, it's going to be difficult because the super pershing isn't such a great tank. The only benefit you have going for you there is the fact that other people will also be struggling with the super pershing. Its armor doesn't really stack up very well. Obviously, it's incredibly slow, and the penetration is quite low, meaning you have to fire a lot of APCR, which can sacrifice the money. If all you care about is getting the mark, though, I would use use obviously liberal amounts of APCR in the tank in order to make sure you pen as many shots as possible, because the standard AP pen, even with pref tanks, is really bad, so you want to be careful there. What I would say is that if you're struggling to get the damage requirement, try and also supplement that with a lot of assist. When you're playing around a lot of heavy tanks, which you'll need to be around a lot of support because obviously the tank can't run away, so you should always have allies around you. Try to aim for like track assisted damage. You're not going to get any spotting, but if you can track tanks sometimes, obviously the best is the road wheel shot where you pen through the side of the road wheel, track the tank and do damage. This isn't always possible, so just try to get some tracking shots when you're around allies, and that way when they shoot the tank you'll also get supplemented damage. Your DPM's pretty good, so you can pretty much reliably permatrack people in some cases, especially if they're tanks that you can't pen, or you have a very low chance of penning. Go for the tracks instead and hope that your allies are able to actually be able to support you there and give you some assist. Dominic asks, hello Anfield, I have a question. What is your 5 tips for AMX50B for a new player? Because this tank will be my first tier 10 and I want to be the best at it, and I think you're #1 AMX50B player in what or YouTube I have seen. Well, I don't know that that's particularly true, but I am pretty good at this tank. Obviously I've 3-marked the tank 3 times on both EU and NA, so yeah, I really do enjoy the 50B. It is my favorite tank. It is a very powerful tank, and it's not a particularly new player friendly tank. It doesn't have an armor, and you have to use the speed and be careful with the autoloader. A lot of players think, oh, autoloaders are so broken, blah 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 blah. They're very difficult to use effectively, especially when you don't have any armor to protect you in the meantime. Much more straightforward to just play a mouse or something. Regardless, so the AMX50B is all about using the gun. The gun is the primary part along with the speed. You have plenty of depression to play on hills, which means you can pop up and take a few shots over hills, but you can also snipe with the tank, which is not something you could really do with, say, a T57 or a Kronwagen. The 50B is one of the better autoloaders for sniping. You can also play the 50B in the T57's role, which is where you shadow another super heavy that has armor and hit points, and you can just wait until an enemy fires at your ally, then you pop out and deal 1600 damage preferably. So yeah, that's one way you can play it. It's very dangerous to play it that way. It's not quite as effective as the 57 because you're down on the reload for longer, and also you have to expose for longer because you have 2.5 second interclip reload rather than 2 seconds on the T57. But it is possible to play it that way. You just have to be very careful. It's important when you play any autoloader, but with the 50B as well, that you be careful with your trading. Ideally, the absolute worst you can allow as a good trade is basically maybe 400 damage to you for 1200 damage dished out. But realistically, you want to do more like 1600 to 400, or preferably 1600 with 0 damage taken is the absolute best. So just be careful where the enemy guns are aiming. You're a support tank, not a main tank, so you want to make sure that you poke up for damage once the enemy is distracted rather than when they're ready to fire at you. Coca-Cola or Pepsi? When I was in the States, I used to drink a lot of Dr. Pepper. That was my favorite, but it tastes different in the UK. I think because of EU regulations of what you can put in, but Coca-Cola still tastes the same. I don't mind Coke, so I guess maybe Coke. So yeah, that wraps up the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for submitting your questions. I should also say that there hasn't been a video for the past few days just purely because the Global Grand Finals have been going on, and also it's been super hot, so I couldn't even stream. I tried to stream the other day and I was just dying. It's cooled down a lot, and I hope it stays this way, and today is the last day of the Grand Finals as well. I've been making this video steadily over the past few days, in between Grand Finals as well as also when I'm not dying of heat exhaustion. There's no air conditioning. Anyway, so there will be more videos and streams coming in the coming week, and also we should know, I think, today with the Grand Finals, I think there's going to be some information coming out relative to Wargaming's policy on the new premiums, as well as a preview of more HD maps, so that's pretty cool. I'll probably make a video on that as well. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. So yeah, that wraps up the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for submitting your questions. I should also say that there hasn't been a video for the past few days just purely because the Global Grand Finals have been going on, and also it's been super hot, so I couldn't even stream. I tried to stream the other day and I was just dying. It's cooled down a lot, and I hope it stays this way, and today is the last day of the Grand Finals as well. I've been making this video steadily over the past few days, in between Grand Finals as well as also when I'm not dying of heat exhaustion. There's no air conditioning. Anyway, so there will be more videos and streams coming in the coming week, and also we should know, I think, today with the Grand Finals, I think there's going to be some information coming out relative to Wargaming's policy on the new premiums, as well as a preview of more HD maps, so that's pretty cool. I'll probably make a video on that as well. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.